In the sprawling solitude of a well-worn park bench in Seattle, Jake Marshall was a portrait of contemplation, his gaze lost, not in the panoramic sweep of the urban landscape, but in the tumultuous reflections of his own past choices. The crisp autumn air carried a hint of rain, but Jake seemed oblivious to the cool breeze that rustled the scattering of fallen leaves around him. His mind was elsewhere, ensnared in the memories of decisions that, in hindsight, seemed less than wise. As Jake sat absorbed in his reverie, a figure emerged from the gray palette of the day. It was a woman moving with a tentative grace, her steps hesitant yet deliberate, carrying a lilac umbrella that stood out against the monochrome backdrop of the overcast sky. Her approach was slow, almost cautious, as if each step measured the weight of the moment. This woman was Liza Montgomery, a blast from Jake's past, once intimately entwined in his life story. Their high school romance had been anything but idyllic. It was a tumultuous affair filled with high emotions and painful disagreements. As Liza drew closer, her familiar features became clearer, bringing with them a flood of memories. Her presence felt ghostly, a specter from a chapter of Jake's life he had long since tried to close. Despite the years apart, the sight of her stirred a complex cocktail of emotions within Jake. Surprised at her sudden appearance, he felt an old wound reopen, a scar from his youth he thought had long since healed. Liza's expression was unreadable, a mixture of apprehension and something that faintly resembled regret. As she reached where Jake sat, Liza paused, her hand tightening slightly on the handle of her umbrella. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the distant sound of city life and the soft whisper of wind through the trees. Finally, breaking the quietude, Liza's voice, softer than he remembered, cut through the air. "Jake," she started, her voice tinged with a nervous uncertainty. "I know this is unexpected. I've thought a lot about our past." Jake, still taken aback by her sudden presence, managed a nod, his voice a low murmur. "Liza, it's been a long time. What brings you here?" Her eyes met his, and for a moment it seemed as if she was searching for the young man she once knew within the weary lines of his face. "I've been through a lot, Jake. Things have changed for me, dramatically," she confessed, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, her gaze drifting away before locking back with his. "I needed to see you, to talk about everything." The air around them felt charged, the past and present colliding in the space that separated them. Liza's return was not merely a walk through the park. It was a deliberate journey back into the life of a man she had once deeply affected. As she stood there, with her lilac umbrella and a heart heavy with words yet spoken, the first chapter of their reconnection began to unfold, setting the stage for revelations and confessions that would challenge the very foundations of their past perceptions. This unexpected meeting was not just a simple reunion. It was the first step on a path towards confronting their intertwined histories, opening a door to discussions of forgiveness and the possibility of healing old wounds. As the chapter drew to a close, the anticipation of what was to come hung heavily in the air, promising deeper insights and perhaps a second chance. The park around them seemed to pause, a silent witness to the confrontation of past ghosts between Jake and Liza. Liza, standing before Jake with a resolve that seemed to waver under the weight of her confessions, hesitated. The years of silence that stretched between them had thickened the air, making the first words not only difficult but laden with the gravity of past pains and regrets. Finally, breaking through the heavy curtain of hesitation, Liza's voice, though soft, carried a firmness that belied the nervous flutter visible in her hands. "Jake," she began, her eyes not quite meeting his, "the last few years have been transformative for me." Her gaze shifted, catching the dull gray of the sky above, as if searching there for the right words. "I was ill, very ill," she continued, her voice steadying with each word. "It was a kind of sickness that makes you reckon with your entire life, all the choices you've made." The revelation hung between them, a new shard of reality that Jake hadn't anticipated. Liza took a deep breath, her next words seeming to cost her more effort. "It made me think about us, about how I treated you and the impact I had on your life." Her gaze finally met his, filled with a sincerity that Jake hadn't seen during the days of their tumultuous youth. "I've come to understand the hurt I caused, and I'm truly sorry, Jake." "Jake," who had braced himself for excuses or perhaps denials, found himself disarmed by her candor. The park's ambient noises, distant laughter, the rustle of leaves, the soft cries of birds, faded into a backdrop for a moment that felt both vulnerable and critical. Liza continued, her voice growing stronger with her convictions. My illness, as harrowing as it was, brought me a clarity I never had before. I realized how many people I've wronged, how many bridges I burned. She paused, her hand clutching the umbrella handle a little tighter. And that's why I'm here, Jake. Not just to apologize, but to make things right, to offer you something that might represent a new beginning. The offer hung in the air, a tangible presence that seemed to momentarily pause the natural world around them. Jake felt a mix of emotions swirling within him. Surprise, skepticism, but also a budding curiosity about what Liza meant by a new beginning. As Liza awaited his response, the chapter closed on a moment fraught with potential and pregnant with the possibility of change. This pause in their conversation marked not just the end of a chapter, but the prelude to a deeper exploration into the possibilities that Liza's return might herald for both of their futures. As the subtle dance of fall leaves continued around them, the emotional atmosphere between Jake and Liza became charged with a profound sense of potential and regret. Liza, her eyes shimmering with the onset of tears, drew a deep, steadying breath, preparing to extend an offer that carried the weight of their shared past and the possibility of a new future. Liza, what are you talking about? What do you mean, start over? Jake's voice betrayed a mix of incredulity and curiosity, his brow furrowing as he tried to grasp the full implications of her words. Liza looked directly into Jake's eyes, her own clear despite the moisture that threatened to spill over. Jake, I know this might sound surreal, and maybe it's unexpected, but I want to offer you a chance to leave all this behind. She gestured vaguely at the surroundings that represented so much of Jake's current struggles. I want you to come with me to California. I live there now with my family, in a place that's so different from here. It's warm, welcoming, and I believe it could be a new beginning for you. The proposal hung between them, audacious and gentle, like the breeze that occasionally lifted leaves around their feet. Liza continued, her voice gaining strength as she outlined her vision. It's not just about a change of scenery, Jake. It's about support, a real support system. I'm offering you not just a place to stay, but a community. My family, they know about us, about our past, and they're supportive of my decision to help you. Jake's skepticism, a guarded shell built from years of disappointments, began to crack ever so slightly as the sincerity in Liza's voice pierced through his defenses. The notion of moving to California, of leaving behind the drab skies and the reminders of failed dreams scattered through Seattle, was both terrifying and tantalizing. I don't know, Liza. It's a lot to process. You're talking about a huge change, Jake finally responded, his voice low, reflecting the turmoil inside him. The idea of uprooting his life based on an offer from someone he hadn't seen in years was daunting. Yet there was an undeniable allure to the possibility of escaping the ghosts that haunted him in these familiar streets. Liza nodded, acknowledging his concerns. I know it's huge, and I wouldn't expect you to decide right now. But think about it, Jake. You wouldn't be alone. You'd have us. And it's not just about escaping, it's about rebuilding. I've got some connections out there, opportunities that could help you start anew. As the conversation dwindled to a thoughtful silence, Jake was left to consider the implications of Liza's proposal. The offer to start anew in California was like a lifeline thrown across the turbulent seas of his current existence. The chapter closed with Jake standing at a crossroads, looking out over the park that had been witness to his solitude, and now to his potential salvation. The decision loomed large, casting a shadow that stretched out toward the horizon, promising a significant change and challenging every certainty he had about his future. With a heart heavy with hope and uncertainty, Jake made the decision that would reroute the course of his life. He accepted Liza's offer, a decision that felt both liberating and daunting. Packing his belongings was a more poignant task than he had anticipated. Each item he placed into his modest suitcases was a reminder of the life he was leaving behind, a life filled with both missteps and moments of quiet solitude. Jake's departure from Seattle was marked by a reflective quietness. His small, sparsely furnished apartment soon echoed emptily, each room stripped of his presence. The city itself seemed to bid him a somber farewell, with overcast skies and a gentle drizzle that had been his constant companion in the Pacific Northwest. The journey to California was a lengthy one, both in miles and in the mental distance Jake felt he was traveling. As the landscape shifted outside his window, from the lush greens of Washington to the arid expanses of California, so too did his internal landscape. The rhythmic movement of the train provided a backdrop to his deep contemplations about the changes awaiting him. What would life in California hold? Could he truly find the redemption and fresh start that Liza promised? Upon his arrival, the warm, golden sunlight of California was a stark contrast to the gray drizzle he had left behind. Liza was there to greet him, her smile bright and welcoming. Beside her stood her family, a group of faces that were both new and inexplicably kind. Their warm welcome was not just polite formalities, but seemed to convey genuine excitement and compassion. They gathered around him, each introduction punctuated by friendly pats on the back and encouraging smiles. Liza's family ushered him into their home, a cozy, sunlit place that radiated warmth and comfort. The atmosphere was infused with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth, a tangible representation of new beginnings and growth. As they showed him around, their house felt less like a structure of walls and rooms, and more like a haven of potential and hope. Jake's room, prepared with thoughtful touches, fresh linens, a small bouquet of local flowers, and a window that offered views of a sprawling, sun-kissed garden, welcomed him. It was here, in this new setting, under the care of Liza's family, that Jake began to feel the weight of his past loosening its grip. The promise of a new start was becoming more real with each passing moment. As the evening approached and the family gathered around the dinner table to share a meal, Jake felt an unfamiliar sense of belonging. The laughter and light-hearted conversations swirled around him, pulling him into the fold of Liza's family life. The chapter closed on this scene of domestic warmth, a poignant counterpoint to the isolation of his life in Seattle. Tomorrow would be the first day of his new life, and as he lay in bed, listening to the distant sounds of the Californian night, Jake felt a mixture of anticipation and peace settle over him. The challenges and changes that lay ahead seemed less daunting now, overshadowed by the promise of support and a fresh start. As Jake awoke to another radiant morning in California, the rays of the sun poured through the window, painting streaks of light across his new room. This light, so starkly different from the muted grays of Seattle, seemed to symbolize the fresh start he was embarking on. Each day began with the vibrant colors of the garden outside, blooms of red, yellow, and purple. A visual feast that was both uplifting and a stark reminder of how much his life had changed. The adjustment to his new surroundings was filled with a spectrum of emotions. On one hand, the warm weather and the gentle breezes were a soothing balm to his weathered spirit. On the other, the process of fitting into this new world with its different rhythms and expectations was a challenge that often left him feeling adrift. Jake spent his days learning the contours of his new life. Mornings were spent exploring the neighborhood, where the streets lined with palm trees, and the distant views of the rolling hills gave him a sense of freedom he hadn't realized he'd been missing. The locals, with their easy smiles and laid-back demeanor, offered greetings that, over time, became less of curious glances and more of welcoming nods. Liza was a constant presence, a guide through his transition. Their relationship, once fraught with turbulence, now found a new rhythm in the calm of shared silences and long walks. These moments were not just about revisiting what had been, but about discovering what could be. Liza's family also played a crucial role in his adjustment. Their unwavering support and acceptance provided a foundation on which Jake could start rebuilding his confidence and envision a new path forward. However, with new beginnings came the inevitable reflections on the past. Despite the physical distance from his old life, memories of his darker days lingered. Each friendly interaction and each new experience in California was tinted with the shadows of his previous struggles. Learning to let go of these remnants was a daily battle, one that took place in the quiet moments when the novelty of his new surroundings faded into the background. As the chapter draws to a close, Jake stands at the edge of the garden, looking out over the landscape bathed in the golden hue of the setting sun. The beauty of the scene before him is overwhelming, and for a moment, he allows himself to feel a cautious optimism about the future. Here, in this moment, with the last light of the day casting long shadows on the ground, Jake feels the weight of his past loosening, giving way to the potential of the life he has just begun to step into. As Jake's new life in California began to settle into a rhythm, marked by sunlit days and cool, starry nights, he found himself slowly peeling away the layers of his own past, a past he had hoped to leave behind in the rainy streets of Seattle. But as the novelty of his new surroundings started to wane, the deeper, more introspective work began. It was during this period of adjustment that Jake started to see that his struggles were not his alone. Liza, too, carried her own burdens, cloaked behind her poised exterior. The house, always buzzing with the day's activities, quieted down at night, giving way to a tranquility that seemed to invite confidences. It was during these quieter hours that Liza began to open up more about her own life. What Jake had initially perceived as a stable and fulfilling existence in California was, as Liza revealed, a carefully constructed facade meant to shield her from the judgments of others and perhaps to deny her own regrets. Liza's revelations came gradually, each confession seeming to cost her a piece of her carefully guarded reserve. She spoke of the years following their tumultuous breakup, years filled with achievements and outward successes that the world admired. Yet, beneath the accolades and the smiles, Liza confessed to a pervasive loneliness that gnawed at her, a sense of isolation that no amount of professional accomplishment could alleviate. Her journey had been marked by a series of professional triumphs that, while impressive, had left her feeling disconnected from those around her. The high expectations she had always set for herself turned into a double-edged sword, pushing her forward in her career, but pulling her away from potential meaningful relationships. She admitted to Jake that her illness, while a time of great physical and emotional pain, had also provided her with a much-needed pause, a chance to reflect on her life's direction and the people in it. Jake listened, often in silence, as Liza detailed the personal cost of her successes. Her voice, usually so full of confidence during the day, took on a softer, more reflective tone in the privacy of these evening conversations. As she shared her innermost thoughts, Jake began to understand the true extent of her loneliness and the remorse she felt not only towards him but towards others she had pushed away in her pursuit of success. These nightly conversations, once a mere recounting of daily events, turned into sessions of mutual disclosure, where both Jake and Liza navigated the complexities of their pasts and pondered the possibilities of their futures. Through these talks, Jake not only learned more about Liza's struggles, but also began to confront his own lingering feelings of inadequacy and failure that had traveled with him from Seattle. As the night deepens, their conversation dwindles, leaving the room in thoughtful silence, filled only with the shared understanding of each other's past and the challenges they both faced. As the days lengthened into weeks, the layers of Jake and Liza's pasts continued to unravel, revealing deeper truths that had long been obscured by time and distance. It was during one of these long evenings, as the California sky painted itself into the twilight hues of sunset, that Liza reached a new depth of disclosure with Jake. The cool breeze that whispered through the open windows carried with it a sense of impending revelation, setting the scene for a moment of significant honesty. In the quiet comfort of the living room, with only the soft murmur of the night's creatures as their soundtrack, Liza shared a truth she had long masked behind a facade of success and stability. Her achievements, which had always appeared stellar to the outside world, were, she confessed, a carefully constructed shield that hid her profound loneliness and disconnection. All these years, Liza revealed, I've been living behind a mask, one that I crafted so carefully that it almost became my reality. This confession emerged not as a dramatic declaration, but as a quiet admission, the weight of her words more palpable in the hush of their surroundings. Liza spoke of the isolation that success had brought her, a golden cage that, while enviable to some, was stifling to her spirit. She described how her relentless pursuit of professional accolades was driven not by a thirst for achievement, but by a fear of facing the emptiness that lingered within her. Her admissions did not stop at her personal feelings, but extended to the impact of her actions on those around her, particularly Jake. She acknowledged how her behavior during their younger years, driven by her own insecurities and challenges, had contributed to Jake's struggles. "I see now how my actions, my decisions influenced not just my path but yours as well," she confessed, her voice tinged with the regret of hindsight. This vulnerability from Liza did not evoke in Jake a sense of vindication, but rather a profound empathy. Seeing Liza not just as the girl he once knew, but as the woman she had become, grappling with her own set of challenges, allowed Jake to understand the complexities of human emotions and the intricate ways in which their lives were intertwined. The evening stretched on, and their conversation meandered through the corridors of their past, touching on moments of joy and pain, each memory now cast in the new light of understanding. Jake found himself reassessing not only his feelings towards Liza, but also his interpretation of their shared history. As Liza's honesty wove a new narrative between them, Jake felt a shift in the dynamics of their relationship. No longer were they merely reconnecting acquaintances from a shared past. They were two individuals who had grown and changed, now exploring the possibility of forging a future informed by mutual understanding and newfound respect. As the night drew to a close, the weight of their conversation left a contemplative silence hanging between them. They sat together, not speaking, but communicating in a language of shared experiences and empathetic silences. The air was thick with the resonance of their truths, and as they each retreated into their own thoughts, the chapter came to a close, leaving them on the brink of navigating a new and uncharted path forward. In the lingering quiet of that revelatory evening, Jake found himself at a profound crossroads. The shadows of the room seemed to echo with Liza's confessions, her words resonating deeply within him, stirring old feelings of hurt, but also awakening new thoughts of compassion. The night had peeled back layers of misunderstanding and misjudgments, laying bare the raw truths of their shared history and individual pains. As Jake sat in the silent aftermath of their conversation, he wrestled with the specters of past grievances. The room around him was still, the only movement being the gentle flicker of a candle casting soft shadows against the walls, mirroring the tumultuous play of emotions within him. Each flicker seemed to reflect his wavering between resentment and forgiveness, between clinging to old wounds and embracing the possibility of healing. Jake pondered the weight of Liza's loneliness, her admission of using success as a shield against deeper emotional engagement, and her impact on his past. These revelations brought him to a clearer understanding of the complexity of human frailties and the ways in which they can inadvertently wound others. This understanding slowly chipped away at the hardened shell of his resentment, revealing beneath it a nascent desire to forgive, not just for Liza's sake, but for his own peace. The decision to forgive, as Jake realized, was less about absolving Liza of her past actions and more about freeing himself from the chains of bitterness that had long constrained his heart. Forgiveness, he acknowledged silently in the quiet of the night, was not an exoneration of the past, but a liberation from it. After hours of contemplation, as the first hints of dawn crept through the curtains, Jake felt a subtle but definitive shift within himself. It was as if the rising sun brought with it the promise of new beginnings, a symbol of the fresh start that forgiveness could usher in. He understood that forgiveness was not a momentary choice, but a path to walk, a continual process of releasing old hurts for the sake of building something new and healthier. With the decision made, a sense of relief slowly began to wash over him, as palpable as the morning light that now filled the room. This relief was not born of resolution, but of acceptance, an acceptance of Liza's humanity and his own, and of the imperfections that defined them both. As Jake stood up, his movements resonant with the weight of his decision, he felt a new readiness to step forward into a day that held the promise of genuine healing. The chapter closed with him gazing out the window, contemplating the quiet beauty of the dawn and the journey of forgiveness he and Liza were about to embark upon. Each step an act of healing and reconciliation. As the early rays of the morning sun gave way to the full brightness of a new day, Jake and Liza found themselves not just awakening to a new dawn, but also to a new chapter in their lives. The decision to forgive had set the stage for a profound transformation, one that involved rebuilding more than just their individual selves. It was about reconstructing their relationship from the ground up. This period of reconstruction was both literal and metaphorical. Together, they embarked on projects around Liza's family home, turning the acts of painting, gardening, and renovating into symbols of their renewed partnership. Each stroke of the brush and turn of the soil was imbued with a deeper significance, reflecting their commitment to mend the old and build the new. These activities, while mundane on the surface, became rich with metaphorical meaning, each task a step towards healing and renewal. As they worked side by side, Jake and Liza learned to navigate the delicate balance of giving and receiving help. This balance was crucial, as it allowed them to establish a dynamic rooted in equality and mutual support. The garden they tended together became a tangible manifestation of their growing bond, a space that flourished under their combined care, just as their relationship did. The plants they nurtured were like the moments of their shared days, each needing careful attention and each responding to their joint efforts with growth and vitality. Beyond the physical tasks, the process of rebuilding their lives together also involved deep emotional work. Long conversations often accompanied their meals or their rest periods, during which they would explore their hopes, fears, and dreams for the future. These discussions were no longer fraught with the tension of unspoken grievances, but were filled with the openness that comes from trust and understanding. They shared not only their thoughts, but also their spaces, their silences, and their stories, weaving a new fabric of intimacy that was stronger for its texture of forgiveness and honesty. This time also allowed them to redefine their individual identities within the context of their relationship. Jake found new confidence as he took on challenges and roles that he had never envisioned for himself, encouraged by Liza's faith in his capabilities. Liza, in turn, found in Jake a compassionate listener and a steadfast ally, someone who not only understood her past, but who was also committed to a shared future. As they built their days with intentional actions and conversations, they also rebuilt trust and affection, discovering that each shared project and each exchanged vulnerability added layers of depth to their bond. This joint effort to mend their pasts and forge a new path forward was a powerful testament to the transformative power of forgiveness and the resilience of human connections. As the day drew to a close, with the setting sun casting long shadows across the newly tended garden, Jake and Liza sat together, reflecting on the progress they had made. The air around them was filled with the quiet satisfaction of a day's work well done, and the deeper fulfillment of lives being lovingly rebuilt. They looked out over their joint efforts, seeing not just a garden in bloom but a future ripe with possibilities. In the wake of their renewed commitment to each other, Jake and Liza continued to navigate the complexities of rebuilding their lives together. A journey marked not only by cooperative efforts, but also by the individual challenges that tested their resolve. Each day brought with it a new set of obstacles, from the mundane frustrations of daily life to the more profound struggles of personal growth and healing. The process of reconstructing a relationship as complex as theirs, laden with histories both shared and separate, meant that misunderstandings occasionally surfaced, despite their best intentions. These moments required them to practice the forgiveness they had committed to, applying it not just in grand gestures, but in the everyday give and take of living together. Each small misstep or disagreement was a test of their ability to communicate openly and to extend grace to one another. Financial adjustments also posed a significant challenge. Jake, in moving to California and leaving behind his previous life, had stepped into a new world of financial interdependence. Navigating this new terrain required adjustments and sacrifices from both Jake and Liza, as they sought to balance their budgets and plan for a future that they were only just beginning to envision together. The stress of financial planning, while a common hurdle for many, was intensified for them by the stakes of their newly rebuilt relationship. Moreover, integrating into Liza's community posed its own set of challenges for Jake. Despite the warm welcome, he often felt the undercurrents of being an outsider, a newcomer in a tight-knit community. Each social gathering or neighborhood event was a reminder of the differences in his and Liza's backgrounds and the distance he had traveled, not just geographically, but emotionally and culturally, from his roots in Seattle. Despite these hurdles, each challenge they faced served as an opportunity to strengthen their bond. They tackled home repairs that Liza had long postponed, learning to work together to solve problems and make decisions. These tasks, though sometimes frustrating, taught them patience and teamwork, reinforcing their commitment to their shared life. The growth of their garden mirrored their relationship, a natural, evolving entity that faced threats from pests and weather, but grew resilient with care and attention. Gardening together became a metaphor for their relationship, planning, nurturing, sometimes renegotiating, and often marveling at the unexpected beauty that resulted from their joint efforts. As they moved through these challenges, their evenings often ended with reflective conversations, sometimes by the fireplace, other times under the stars in their garden. These were moments for Jake and Liza to acknowledge their day-to-day victories and setbacks, to reaffirm their commitment to their journey together, and to celebrate the quiet, unremarkable moments that, woven together, formed the tapestry of their renewed life. Each challenge surmounted not only confirmed the strength of their forgiveness, but also deepened their trust in each other and in the path they had chosen. As they faced these obstacles, they did so with a growing sense of partnership, finding in each challenge a chance to learn more about each other and about the possibilities that lay ahead. As the seasons shifted and the years gently unfurled their passage, Jake found himself often lost in contemplation about the profound journey he had embarked upon alongside Liza. Their life together had blossomed into a rhythm of shared experiences, each season bringing deeper understanding and growth. Amidst this evolving life, the concept of redemption frequently occupied Jake's thoughts, a theme that seemed to weave itself into the very fabric of their daily existence. Redemption, as Jake came to understand, was not a single act or moment, but a continuous process, an ever-unfolding path that involved much more than reconciling with others. It was also about reconciling with oneself, about confronting and accepting the darker parts of his own nature, the mistakes of the past, and the regrets that had once seemed insurmountable. In his quieter moments, often while tending to the garden that had grown under their care, a garden that now not only flourished with flowers, but also with vegetables and herbs, Jake pondered the layers of meaning behind redemption. Each plant in the garden had struggled through soil and weather to thrive, much like his own struggles with his past and his efforts to grow beyond them. The garden was a living metaphor for redemption. It required patience, persistence, and most importantly, the willingness to start anew, regardless of past failures. As the garden required regular nurturing and sometimes forgiveness for the seasons when it didn't bloom as hoped, so did his internal journey towards self-redemption. Jake learned to forgive himself for the years lost to bitterness and misunderstanding, for the harsh judgments he had once held against himself and Liza, and for the paths not taken. This journey of self-forgiveness was mirrored in his relationship with Liza. Their daily interactions, once fraught with the potential for regression into old patterns, had grown into dialogues marked by mutual respect and understanding. They learned to offer each other grace and space to grow, to admit faults without fear of judgment, and to support each other's personal journeys towards healing. Jake also found redemption in the small acts of kindness and love he exchanged with the community around him. Each act of giving, each moment of genuine connection, seemed to repair a small part of the world that had once seemed irreparably broken. He volunteered at local community centers, participated in environmental conservation efforts, and often simply listened to the stories of his neighbors, learning that his own story was but one in a mosaic of redemption tales. The reflection on redemption also led Jake to new understandings about the nature of love and commitment. He realized that true love was not static but dynamic, requiring continual effort and adaptation. It was not about perfection, but about embracing imperfections, both in himself and in Liza, and building something beautiful from them. As the years passed, these reflections deepened and solidified into a profound appreciation for the second chance he had been given and the life he and Liza had built together. Each reflection, each realization brought him closer to a sense of peace, a peace that was once elusive, but now formed the cornerstone of his existence. As the chapter of this particular period of reflection drew to a close, Jake found himself looking out over the garden on a crisp, clear morning, the dew still fresh on the leaves, the air filled with the promise of a day yet to be lived. His thoughts were a blend of gratitude and anticipation, ready to meet the next chapter of his life with the wisdom gained from his years of seeking redemption. As Jake stood on the threshold of this new phase, looking out over the landscape they had shaped together, he reflected on the profound transformations both within and around him. The morning air was brisk, tingling with the energy of a day waiting to unfold. With Liza beside him, each step they took was a testament to the strength of their renewed bond, a bond forged through mutual understanding and deep-seated love. Together, they had laid the foundations of a life enriched not only by personal fulfillment, but also by a shared commitment to broader, community-oriented goals. Their home had become a hub of activity, a place where plans were hatched and initiatives launched, each aimed at enhancing the collective well-being of their community. They organized local cleanup drives, initiated recycling programs, and participated in community gardens, projects that intertwined their lives more deeply with those of their neighbors. Their involvement extended beyond environmental efforts. Jake and Liza also dedicated time to mentoring local youth, sharing stories of their own struggles and recoveries to inspire and encourage resilience in others. These mentoring sessions, often filled with personal anecdotes and lessons learned, became a crucial part of their week. Through these interactions, they not only gave back but also found themselves learning anew the lessons of their own journeys, seeing their past experiences through the fresh perspectives of those they helped. The couple also engaged in restoring a nearby park, transforming it from a neglected area into a vibrant community space. This project in particular brought them closer to many families in the area, fostering a sense of community that went beyond mere neighborly courtesy to something richer and more connected. The park soon hosted weekly community picnics, play dates, and movie nights, becoming a symbol of communal harmony and a testament to the power of collective effort. In these endeavors, Jake found a new purpose and a sense of belonging that had eluded him in his earlier years. He discovered that making a difference in the lives of others enriched his own life in ways he had never anticipated. The joy of seeing a community come together, of witnessing firsthand the impact of shared goals and dreams, was both humbling and uplifting. Liza, for her part, thrived in the role of organizer and motivator, her past experiences providing her with a unique insight into the challenges faced by individuals and communities alike. Her journey from isolation to integration, from personal success to communal involvement, echoed the broader narrative of change and possibility that they both championed. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows and painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Jake and Liza stood together in the park they had helped revive. Around them, children played, couples strolled, and old friends chatted on newly installed benches beneath the trees they had planted. This scene, vibrant with life and laughter, was a vivid illustration of their new beginning, a life built not on the pursuit of individual fulfillment alone, but on the foundations of community and mutual care. Reflecting on this tapestry of interactions and the new beginnings it represented, Jake felt a profound sense of accomplishment and hope. The challenges of the past, once overwhelming in their intensity, now seemed like necessary steps on the path to this moment, a moment filled with the promise of continued growth and shared futures. As the day ended, Jake and Liza prepared to return home, their hearts full and their spirits buoyed by the community they had helped nurture, a community that, in turn, had helped them heal and grow. Capítulo 13. As the dusk settled over the revitalized park, Casting a serene glow across the faces of those enjoying the tranquil evening, Jake and Liza found themselves in a reflective mood. The soft chirping of crickets and the gentle rustle of leaves created a peaceful backdrop as they walked slowly through the paths they had helped to nurture back to life. This quiet moment was a stark contrast to the tumultuous journey they had embarked upon years earlier, a journey marked by pain, misunderstanding, and ultimately profound healing. In these reflective walks, Jake and Liza often pondered the incredible transformation that forgiveness had wrought in their lives. It wasn't just about the forgiveness they had extended to each other, though that was significant. It was also about the forgiveness each had learned to extend to themselves. This dual forgiveness had unlocked a depth of freedom neither had experienced before. Jake, in particular, had discovered that self-forgiveness was perhaps the most challenging and crucial aspect of his journey. He had come to understand that his past failures and mistakes were not chains that needed to drag him down for a lifetime, but lessons that could guide his future actions. The process of forgiving himself had been arduous, filled with moments of doubt and self-recrimination, but it had also been liberating. It allowed him to move beyond the confines of his past and embrace a present filled with potential and growth. For Liza, the journey of forgiveness had revealed the hidden strengths within vulnerabilities. She had learned that acknowledging her own flaws did not weaken her. Rather, it opened the door to genuine connections and healing. Forgiving herself for the years of emotional isolation and for the pain she had inadvertently caused others had empowered her to rebuild her life on a foundation of authenticity and compassion. Together, they had learned that forgiveness was not a finite resource, but a renewable one, a wellspring that could nourish their ongoing journey. It had allowed them to rebuild their relationship on new terms, grounded in mutual respect and understanding, and it had also enabled them to reach out to their community with open hearts, ready to contribute and build rather than withdraw and withhold. As they continued their walk, the couple stopped occasionally to appreciate the simple beauty around them. The laughter of children playing in the distance, the companionship of elderly couples strolling hand in hand, and the community thriving in the space they had helped transform. Each of these scenes was a testament to the power of forgiveness and the new beginnings it could foster. The evening drew to a close with the sky painted in strokes of pink and orange, a daily masterpiece that never ceased to inspire awe. Jake and Liza stood together, hands clasped, hearts full, looking out over the park. This moment was a profound reminder of the journey they had taken, a journey not just of physical and emotional relocation, but of spiritual renewal. The power of forgiveness, they realized, was its ability to transform not only the forgiver and the forgiven, but also to ripple outward, touching lives and healing wounds in ways they could never have anticipated. This realization was not an end, but a gateway to continuous growth and learning, a path they were committed to walking together. As they turned back towards home, the fading light casting long shadows behind them, they did so with the understanding that each step taken in forgiveness was a step towards a richer, more connected life.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.